wanted to talk about MTG Arena today. It's seemingly entered a new renaissance period for the game, as an influx of new players are now looking for that 1 versus 1 itch. For the last 2 online set releases, the servers have crashed. If you need any evidence of this, for the last 2 online set releases now, the servers have crashed. The Steam stats for the game are at an all-time high. Yeah, it's on Steam. I only just found out too. And every second player on Arena is now rocking a cloud avatar. It's safe to say, for the first time in a while, MTG Arena is like standard now, flourishing. I've been playing Arena for a few years now, and am midway through a personal challenge of mine to hit Mythic every month this year, through standard best of 3. But before I started taking Arena super seriously, I, like many players, began with standard best of 1. This is hands down the most popular way to play Arena, and it's what Wizards funnels new players into, and naturally bleeds its way into discussions about Magic too. If you visit r/spikes or any competitive Magic forum where players LARP as pros, you'll see threads with images like this.
Hey guys, I put together this control deck, but keep losing to aggro. What should I change?
To the untrained eye, this is just an image of someone's deck. But buried in here is a fatal mistake on any Spike board. There's no sideboard. I kid you not, in almost every single one of these threads, there will be at least one comment about best of 1 being broken, unbalanced, followed up by advice to simply just play best of 3. This thought process isn't unique to these threads. Look around and you'll be able to find lots of discussions about the problems with best of 1. The best of 1 situation is insane. Jokes aside, let's break down the controversy surrounding Arena's most popular format. What's happened that made the intended quick game experience so controversial and negatively perceived that caused players to simply encourage each other to stay away from what should be Magic at its most accessible? As always, share your thoughts with me on how you'd fix best of 1 in the comments, and let me know what else you'd like to see on this channel. By the time this is out, I'll have thrown up my first video of me actually playing the game instead of just talking about it. If you're interested in Arena gameplay or just want something to throw on in the background, check it out. If you're at this point still wondering what the alleged problem in best of 1 Magic is, let's start by looking at some data. As of Edge of Eternities, these are the highest win rate decks in standard for best of 1 and best of 3 respectively. Straight away, you're going to notice a phenomenon where the majority of decks that perform best in one format are completely different from the other. The reason for this shouldn't really come as a surprise. At a high level, some decks simply perform better in the first game than in second and third games. We've all been guilty of playing gimmick decks. Maybe it's a combo deck that relies on your opponent wasting their removal on the wrong creature, or simply tapping out on turn 3. Another great example is that classic graveyard deck we've all played against, that tries to discard a big finisher as quickly as possibly and reanimate it just as fast. Decks like this are great at winning in best of 1, but often would lose the next 2 games when your opponent can sideboard in cards that, for example, would exile the graveyard. To be clear, there is nothing wrong with these decks, in moderation. It can lead to some high moments for the player, while the opponent can just go next. But there's a term you might be familiar with to describe this experience for the opponent: non-games. It happens in all types of Magic. We've all had games where we miss our land drops, mulligan to 4, don't draw the removal. But lately, there's been no higher rate of non-games quite like in Arena Best of 1. If you're trying to climb the ladder in Arena, it is in your interest to take as many advantages as you can get to win. While many players succeed playing their favorite decks, the ones that top Best of 1 specifically aim to reduce the maximum amount of agency your opponents have to deal with it. To best showcase this, let's look back to Best of 1 during Duskmourn. This is how a typical Best of 1 game went during this season. Turn 1, Leyline of Resonance into Heartfire Hero or Cacophony Scare. Your opponent will play a land and pass. Turn 2,
Snake, are you okay? Snake?
either the opponent had the 1 mana interaction to remove the Scamp or the hero, or you'll use the red Leyline to buff the creature into oblivion and one-shot them. You might argue a game of Magic was played here. The opponent should have smartly included a removal spell, or they learnt a valuable lesson to do so in the future. But consider the deck building implications here in Magic's casual format for Arena. Considering this, in the new player appealing format, we've established just from this that the bare minimum for your deck to be competitive in best of one standard is a playset of 1 mana spot removal, no more than 2 colors in your deck so you can reasonably cast it, and a mana base that is already strong enough, packed with untapped dual lands, most of them being rare, that can enter for you to be able to immediately play it. Already, we've just established 3 genuine hurdles for a player. If you started in Duskmourn and only had access to cards from that set, with some exceptions for wildcards, your options are dramatically more limited. Setting aside missing any one of these hurdles dramatically increased the odds of a non-game, where you basically watch your opponent win, and Wizards seem to agree with this outlook, as for the first time in nearly 5 years, a card, the Red Leyline, was uniquely banned from Best of One. Red Leyline was so ruthless, it ended up being the first card since Nexus of Fate to be banned specifically from Best of One. While definitely an outlier or more extreme case, this lightning-fast, game-ending style of play is definitely not unique in Best of One. It shouldn't come as a surprise then that despite this ban, the decks that consistently post the highest win rate in Best of One are binary, ruthless, aggressive, and fast decks, designed to end the game before you start it. Before it was banned, Corey Steelcutter was one of 2 tyrannical decks that dominated the Best of One format, where, stop me if this sounds familiar, it would take you down at lethal speeds. If losing to Corey wasn't your speed, the other deck in Best of One that could match it was Omniscience Combo, also capable of ending the game consistently on turn 4. The most difficult part, if you weren't playing one of these decks for Best of One players, was to build your deck to beat one without immediately folding to the other, vastly limiting the deck building and player expression you had, which arguably is one of the most crucial things for the new player and general player experience. Though both these cards have since been excised from the format, well, in Omniscience's case, the reanimation piece was, let's now revisit the win rate graph for Best of One. At a glance, there's a variety of decks here, and it may appear to be like a healthy format. You've got aggro, some control, and even a little bit of mid-range in there. Collectively, these 8 decks are roughly half the meta you'll run into. And while they enact their game plan in various different ways, the real truth of this is that in Best of One, you can categorize these decks into one of 2 types. Fast decks that run you over in 4 turns flat, or dedicated decks to playing full anti-aggro. These can be decks that run 20 pieces of removal or life gain, and will attempt to freeze you out of the game should you be an aggro player. If you played Best of One religiously, you've almost certainly spotted both of these in the wild, and the majority of your opponents will fall into either extreme of the scale. You either try to create a non-game for your opponent, or fill your deck with so much removal and interaction or life gain that your opponents cannot possibly resolve a spell or get over the top of you. Occasionally, this dichotomy in the right meta is also how tempo decks like Dimir Midrange have historically managed to sneak through the win rates, for their ability to tempo out super control while running enough removal to at least have a chance versus most aggro decks. But it's here that I want to highlight the particular issue I personally take with Best of One currently. In a vacuum, these decks can exist. I have no gripes with any particular deck on this list. The problem is that we're in a metagame so polarized, your deck must either do its thing immediately or stop your opponent from doing anything at all. Final Fantasy brought a new community to Magic, and judging by the continued interest in Arena, I really think we're doing them a disservice having the far and away most popular format be defined by total aggro and total control. Imagine you're a new player who got the starter kit and is playing it on Arena. Both decks get absolutely mopped by aggro, so you're left with warping the deck to slow down the aggro. Only now you've taken out the Final Fantasy cards you wanted to play just to do this. I know this example is purely anecdotal, but I genuinely believe this has already happened to people and will probably continue to happen. So rather than talking about the problem, let's discuss how you could actually tackle this. And believe it or not, without even banning any cards. Dedicated aggro and dedicated anti-aggro exist in a pretty clear-cut cause and effect. If you find a way to tone down aggro, other strategies alongside Dimir Midrange and other tempo decks can find room to breathe and bring it in check. This in turn allows anti-aggro aggro and control to move more back into its roots of playing an actual game plan, aside from just stopping the opponent. The solution is hidden in one of the more key differences between best of 1 and best of 3. If you look at a typical land count for a best of 1 aggro deck and compared it to best of 3, or taking it out of aggro, take the most recently popular Jeskai Artifacts deck in best of 1 and best of 3. You'll see a disparity between the number of lands the best of 1 variant runs versus the best of 3 variant. The reason for this is best of 1 across all modes on Arena utilizes a hidden mechanic the Arena team have dubbed hand smoothing. This isn't some shuffler conspiracy. This is documented and an acknowledged feature by the Arena dev team. And while they are intentionally vague about how it works, we do know this. In simple terms, in best of 1 only, I will reiterate, when a game starts, you are dealt 2 hands of 7 rather than 1. The game will pick the one to give you with the best balance of lands to fit your curve. The curve is determined by the number of lands themselves you put in the deck. While this was intended to mitigate the negative experience for players mulliganing a hand of 0 or 7 lands, what this also does is allow players in the know to warp the probability of drawing a playable hand dramatically, allowing them to run less lands and up the consistency of their deck to apply fast pressure. To demonstrate, let's compare 2 mono-red aggro decks with similar curves. In this scenario, both decks want an opening hand of 2 to 3 lands tops, with room to draw 1 or 2 more over the course of the game. The best of 1 version runs 19 lands, while the best of 3 runs 22. Despite running 3 less lands, you are statistically more likely to hit that sweet spot of 2 to 3 lands, with over 85% of starts in best of 1 having the opener, as opposed to 59.5% in our 22 land best of 3 deck. I'm sure a proper statistics major in the comments can give me a more refined take than this, but even with my napkin math, there is a clear enhanced element of consistency, not only in the starting hands of aggro decks, but also the quality of cards they can safely trade their mountains for, as they can now run creatures or burn instead. Inversely, the hand smoother also impacts high land count decks, giving them a much higher than average amount of lands in their starting hands, giving ramping strategies a much more vulnerable start, as their starting hands are more likely to be cluttered with 4 to 5 lands. If it wasn't clear, the point I'm getting at is that it's time to pack up the hand smoother. I can understand a world where it offers a forgiving way to new players to not have to experience the negative effects of building a deck with low land count. But more often than not, this system is continually exploited by players who know that reducing their land count from 23 to 22 significantly alters the quality of their starting hands. Aggro will still likely be a top dog in the meta, and there's nothing wrong with that. Where there is no ability to sideboard and removal, that's totally okay. If we tone down their explosive starts though, by reducing their consistency, making it more of a high roll, it's my hope that doing this would be a big step forward for Timmy to be able to play his cloud deck, and the best of 1 spike community not feeling shoehorned into either playing super aggro or super control. Come on, Wizards, pull the trigger. Honestly, I reckon it would be a net positive for the community, and long term will keep players more engaged in the format. That's all I really wanted to say on this as a former best of 1 player who migrated to best of 3 because of this. Till then, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.